All right, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, the bonds, the apostles of GMS, and sincere shalom to the brothers out here pushing this truth in sincerity. And what I have here is some folly on wondering how this even made the news break. As you can see, it says decades ago, a local stylist creates wigs for hip hop royalty from Lil Kim to Lauryn Hill. And I'm like, okay, but why is it on Newsbreak? It says now her work is in a traveling museum exhibit. And I'm thinking, okay, usually when I hear these type of things ending up on any type of social media, it will be away from the news. It will be like something you had to look up on the article, or basically just like on a record or certain other things, right? But this of all things, and this is probably one of the dumbest things that ends up on the news break. I've seen some okayish things on the news, some dumb, but this is dumber than dumb. And there's nothing against what people do for their work. But again, with all the things that's going on in this world, this ends up on a news break. Meanwhile, you have all sorts of other things happening. People dying, what the government does, what is happening out in the world. So, but then you get a lot of people that subscribe to this stuff, and it's to keep their minds distracted from the bigger truth because they don't. A lot of these people refuse to accept it, which is fine. But for something like this to end up on here, it's actually quite funny because you look at this was posted a couple days ago. Usually, it takes about a good 4 days to a week before it really pops off. But in 2 days, it already got 88 likes. Within, you can see the comments. Salakia. But you see how they just like, okay, this is, and again, this is nothing against the artist itself, but they just making it seem like this is the greatest thing for a hairhead to be on the news. So this is Proverbs 10:2. It says, treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivereth from death. And this is one of those things that this that the treasures of social media profit nothing because all you get is a bunch of dumb stuff. I remember back even when I was a child, hell, even on the news from on TV, they actually had some important stuff on news. A lot of it they wouldn't tell, but it was still more relevant than this. Now your news has just become their local social media now, apparently. And this is what you get. So many people is just so distracted or just trying to keep away from the truth of what's really going on, and they can't handle it. That's even going into Isaiah 42:22, where it says these people are robbed and spoiled, uh, they're being held in the snare and traps. And the snares and traps is the society when it comes to social media, giving these quote unquote rights. And listen to the key word where I said given rights. You don't actually have rights, but you're given those rights. And that's only for a certain amount of time, because guess what? Martial law kicks in, you no longer have those rights. But let's go to like certain states, like even the one I'm in, it's a police state. Police states get to pretty much overrule your rights anyways, automatically. And a lot of people don't really know that because there's certain states out there that's strictly police states. But to stay on the topic is that the fact that these people have given all their hope, or they just see or losing their hope for the fact of the matter of what's going on. They hear more news about what's going on with other countries and other stuff, or just the fact that the prices the prices here has pretty much skyrocketed. I'm talking about in the US, to the point they like screw everything. We need some type of form of relaxation, which is fine. which is fine. But it's the fact that these people worship this type of stuff, or it'll get a lot of views, or or they'll get a lot of views from whoever they idol. You listen to our people commonly, they talk about the next rapper, the big entertainer, the big comedian. I don't even hear much about the comedians, but I'll hear stuff about the football players and other sports players. But you'll never really hear them talk about what's going on outside this place, right? So you get stuff like this. Meanwhile, Slakia, wait for it to pop up. Meanwhile, you type in World War III, you get stuff recently from 5 months ago, 4 weeks ago, last month, yesterday, left and right. It's a whole list going on. But somehow none of this really makes the news or the news break. But you got all this stuff popping up. And you had the question, why is that? Because common sense. Well, commonly is because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to actually be aware of what's going on. Because they need people for the draft. They need people to be pretty much caught off guard for whatever's about to happen next. How they talking about a new virus running around. So we already know what this is heading to. This is actually this is Ecclesiastes 12:3. It says, "In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened." So you got all your workers, all your entertainers, and so on and so forth. What happens when all that shuts down? You don't have no more jobs. You don't have no more entertainment. And then all you have left is to watch Babylon in a sorrowful state, as it's technically in right now, but it's going to get worse from here. Soon, those hair hats on display won't be much of anything. They'll just be used to be wiping people's asses because the value of it has no worth. The fact that something like that can end up in a museum is beyond me, because you could have plenty other things that can end up in the museum, but you chose that of all things. That's like putting a TV on display when you can get that anywhere. This is Exodus 20:3. It says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And that was going strictly to us, well, to his hopeful elect, because look at the state of our people. They put other gods before the Lord. Prime example is the entertainment. You hear people freak out when they hear Beyonce or Nicki Minaj or some other entertainer. And hell, even my parents was even telling me that hell, when Prince was still a big hit, women was throwing their panties at him. So yeah, that is basically worshiping basically those entertainers as gods when they're not. They just sold out people. But for people that don't know that, you're just basically giving yourselves to an entertainer who's just like who's just a normal person like the rest of us. But to them, they are gods to these people's eyes. Fame in this society is basically being a god to these people, even if it's just an imaginary image. But the moment these people start losing their fame, then all of a sudden they're not really talked about. But you're pushing them back, or they'll be, or if something bad, or if they did something bad, all of a sudden these people are crushed, they're angry, and be like, "Oh, we don't listen to his music," like, or like, what was the recent one? Chris Brown. But even before that, R. Kelly. So there's a list of things that these people put hope in, and then they find out it was a shit, right? So with all these things that's going on, people don't have the slightest clue what's about to happen, and they don't really care because they don't want to know. They want to stay in that darkness. They want to stay in that same predicament. They want to have hope in the society. This is Proverbs 1:26. It says, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. Salaki. It says, when your fear cometh as desolation, and your fear, Salaki, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they seek. Salaki, something. Okay, there we go. It says, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. And that's what it's all going to boil down to. You got a lot of people, especially in this society, that claims to be Christian or whatever the hell they want to be. But then they're going to be the same ones calling on Jesus or Christ or, oh God, save me, to deliver them. Which will be you got a lot of atheism. You got a lot of other religions here. They'll be all calling on the same thing because guess what? It's a common thing here to say. But why is that? Why is saying, oh God or Jesus Christ so common to say? Because deep down, even in their spirits, they know that there's a God. Even because they don't know what he is or what he looks like, they know that he exists deep in their spirits. And in this society, you're allowed to, how should I say, defy that natural instinct inside you to know that the Lord actually exists, which is what you get now in this day and age. Lots of messed up things, such as your hair hats being on display, worshiping other gods, your entertainers, your rappers, and all the other stuff. That's the definement of the spirit of knowing that the Lord actually exists. Because you're given all these different things to worship. You're giving all these things to keep your mind distracted and kept inside the box from understanding that these things actually happen. The Lord actually does these things. That the Lord actually does exist. But people's minds are so distracted they forget that he even exists. But that's why even the Lord said, I also will laugh at your calamity. Which means the downfall or the stress and anguish, basically. So that's pretty much all I have going to that. Well, one, this is edifying. And with that, shalom.